Okay, so we're going to finish up our lessons on changing a percent to a fraction and a fraction to percent. Previously, we learned about percents to decimals, decimals to percents, fractions to decimals, and decimals to fractions. And now we get to finish this up. And just FYI, you have a test next Thursday, the 26th. So, just FYI. All right, so just so that I can make sure we're all on the same page and we remember some of our previous lessons, percent is always out of what? 100. Okay, I don't think I had enough answers on that. Percent is always out of 100. 100. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we had talked about that, which I know we did. So we're going to talk about changing a percent to a fraction. All right, very, very, very simple. All right, so our first step when we change a percent to a fraction is we write the percent over 100. Why 100?
Because that's what percent stands for.
Because that's what a percent means. It means out of 100. Then, it's already now, once I wrote it out of 100 or over 100, I have it now in a fraction form. Now all I have to do is what I always have to do with simplify. Simplify. So percent over 100 and then simplify. That's as easy as that gets. It's kind of a nice little change from yesterday's fraction to decimal where we had to do all that dividing out. All right, so let's look at some examples. That's our first example, 42%. And I'm going to write this percent as a fraction. I put the percent over 100. Will it always go over 100?
Yeah.
Absolutely, because percent is out of
100.
All right. Now I have it in a fraction form. So changing a percent to a fraction is not all that hard because everybody in here can write a line and the number 100. Yes? Okay. Now it's the simplifying. I can simplify. What number can go into both of those? 2. And I'm going to get 21 over 50. Can that be simplified anymore?
No.
Absolutely. It cannot. Correct. That was what I meant. I meant absolutely, like absolutely correct. Bam. I just changed 42% into a fraction in simplest form. Right? Like took nothing. The hardest part was me just telling you what to write. All right, so let's look at another example. 110%. What do we write percents always over? 100. Just because this is a more than 100% doesn't mean that I'm going to do anything different. I'm still going to do the exact same steps. 110 over 100. Okay. I simplify this. What can both of these be simplified by?
10.
10. I'm going to get 11 over 10. Now I know that this is a improper fraction, so I need to change it to a mixed number. Santiago?
It's going to be 1/10 and 1 whole.
1 whole. We always say the whole first.
1 whole and 1/10.
Very good. 1 and 1/10. There is my simplified fraction of 110%. You have a question? Oh.
But that's like super easy. You could just do that in your head. Like you don't even have to work it out.
But yet, we did work it out. Because Miss Armstrong says no work, no
Credit.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we were clear on that. All right, one more example that I really want to talk about because I feel like that 42% and that 110, y'all were getting that. The next one is a type of percent that sometimes throws people for a loop. And in case you can't see, that is 12.5%. Okay, so we're going to do the exact same thing that we do over here. Write the percent over 100. That is not going to change. So I take this, 12.5 over 100. So far, so good, right? Changing that into a fraction is not the difficult. Now, step 2 says that we have to simplify that. I cannot simplify that fraction as it is written because there is a decimal in that fraction. So I can't simplify it. I've got to do something. I've got to manipulate this fraction so that I can get rid of the decimal. I can't just go, oh, not a problem, I'm going to erase the decimal. Because we know that $12.50 is not the same as $125, correct? Would y'all all agree? Okay, so I know that there's this lovely thing that they taught you long ago when we deal with fractions. Whatever you do to the top of a fraction, you gotta do to the bottom of the fraction, right? So what can I do to this decimal to make it become a whole number? Yes, sir. I could multiply it by 2. I could make it go up and then go down. Absolutely, that would give you... I'm looking at something even simpler. So, I know whatever I do to the top of a fraction, I got to do to the bottom of a fraction. If I take this decimal and I move it 1 time to the right, what does that become? 125. Well, whatever I do to the top of a fraction, I gotta do to the bottom of a fraction, yes? So I'm gonna put a decimal, and I have to, if I moved it 1 time to the right on top, I gotta move it 1 time to the right there. What do I add there? 0. So far, so good? These are equivalent fractions, so they mean the same thing. I have not changed the values of anything. These are all equivalent. This percent is equivalent to this fraction, which is equivalent to this fraction. Now I have a fraction that I can reduce, yes? Or I can simplify, all right? And so for time purposes, I am going to reduce it by 125 and 125, and my final fraction would be 1/8. Yeah, we did, right? I used this percent particularly because it was one of those benchmarks, and so you knew kind of already what it was going to end up being. But I wanted to show you this step because this is a very important step. If I had just moved this decimal and made it 125 over 100, is that going to be the same thing? No. Whatever I do to the top of a fraction, I got to do to the bottom of a fraction. All right. All right, let's come over here to fraction to percent. I'm going to star this one. And what I like about these notes is it's kind of funny because the two ones here in the middle are the ones that require the most math. But yet, I mean, it's not like it's hard. All right, because y'all are pre-AP, I'm gonna teach y'all a little bit different, but even if you were in my regular class, if you're in my regular class watching this video, it's still okay to learn this because eventually in Unit 4, Unit 5, you're gonna be learning this method. So it's not gonna harm you to start getting used to it. So when we change a fraction to a percent, the first thing we are going to do is we are going to make an equivalent fraction with denominator of 100. All right. And then I am going to let's see here. How do I want to put this? Use cross products, which I will explain to you in a minute, or equivalency. Equivalent fractions to solve. And I'll give you just a minute to get all of that written down. All right, so let's look at, that seems a lot, right? I mean, it's really still only 2 steps, but we're still needing, I mean, it kind of seems wordy, right? So we're going to look at how to do some of these examples. All right. So now we're going to start off with an easy example so that we can see how to use these notes to solve. So the first one that I'm going to use is 4/5. That's going to be the first fraction. I know all of you can tell me what 4/5 is as a percent, but we're going to go ahead and make sure that we understand it. So the very first step that I'm going to do is it says make an equivalent fraction with the denominator of x over 100. So I'm going to do 4/5 is equal to x over 100. This is equivalent fractions. Now, I can solve this one of 2 ways. I can say, whatever I do to the bottom, what did I do to 5 to get to 100? You would all tell me I multiplied by 20. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top, correct? Or I can use this cross products. And I'm going to show you cross products because it's going to be pretty important when we get into, like I said, a couple more units, and we're going to be using it to solve proportions. So throwing out a word here so it's not brand new to you. What I just did right here was set up a proportion. That is exactly what I just did, was I set up a proportion. Now I'm gonna do cross products. This is also known as the butterfly, right? I call it going fishing.
We're not allowed to call it butterfly.
I know, it's called cross products. So 4 times 100, 4 times 100 is?
400.
And then what do I do? I take 400 and I divide it by what's left? 5. 400 divided by 5 is going to give me 80. So 4/5 as a percent is 80%.
So it's always going to be times 100.
For right now, yes. Where did I get the 100 at?
Percent.
Because we're dealing with percents. We are dealing with percents. Now, what I could have done also was I could have said, hey, look, I multiplied this by 20. I multiplied this by 20. And I'm going to get 80 out of 100. We know that that is going to be what? 80% when we're dealing with percents. So it's out of 100. And then another way, if I really wanted to, and I'm not going to write this down, but I'm going to show you, is if I'm like, whoa, all of this is just too much. I could take 4/5 and I know how to change a fraction to a decimal, and I divide it. I get 0.80, and then now it's a decimal, and I move it, and gonna get 80%. Either one of those will, notice all 3 of those gave me 80%, correct? Yes? So I just gave you 3 different ways of changing a fraction to a percent. Any of those 3 ways will still get you to HEB. Will still get you there, okay? All right, so we're gonna do a couple more examples, and then we're gonna do some practice. I'm gonna stop the video now.